So today we're editing with LUMINAR Neo and using some of the powerful AI features available, which makes me question, do we even need Lightroom and Photoshop anymore? Let's find out. Play tape. Now, what if I told you that LUMINAR Neo could do everything that Lightroom can do and 1,000 things none of it could do? So let's see how we can navigate the interface, and then we'll get into some cool edits. Follow along in the chapters on the playhead below. So here we have a clean slate, no created folders or albums by myself, just as you would find it using LUMINAR Neo for the first time. On my desktop, I have a folder containing some photo projects. We have car and bike shots, dance photography, some street photos, and a portrait folder that contains 3 separate headshot sessions and a random photo of myself. So let's add some of these portrait sessions. Simply drag the folder into LUMINAR Neo's catalog page and the folder will instantly show up in the folders drop-down menu. You can also drag and drop multiple folders at the same time. So you can see them in the folder list, Jay, Maddie, and Sinead. You also have the option to order the folders to suit your preference, either alphabetically, ascending or descending, or date created if you work on more of a calendar basis. Now, how this differs from Lightroom and improves the whole experience is by LUMINAR Neo mapping the actual physical folder on your computer. Let me explain. Any changes made on the hard drive will be mirrored perfectly in the foldering system of the photo editor and vice versa. If I change the name of the folder of Jay to Jaden Vin, which is his full name, it instantly changes on the hard drive. If I change it back to Jay, it will rename that folder in LUMINAR Neo to match the physical folder. Now here's where it gets really good. If I was to change the physical location of a folder on the hard drive, watch what happens. I'll drag the Jay folder into my Dropbox. You'll notice nothing has changed in LUMINAR Neo, the folder's still there, because it's instantly mapped the location of that folder. And to prove it, I'll right-click on the folder and choose Show in Finder. And there it is in my Dropbox folder. Let's just drag it back to the original location and continue. Now that is flipping awesome. So simple. One more thing. If you were to add further images to that folder, let's just grab this picture of yours truly and place it in the J folder. That image instantly appears in the corresponding LUMINAR Neo folder. No fuss. Utterly brilliant. No more importing files like you have to in Lightroom, it just does it automatically. And in my opinion, far more user-friendly and intuitive than what Lightroom would refer to as their digital asset management system. Now, for those of you who follow me on YouTube, and if you don't, please hit the subscribe button. I am a portrait photographer by trade, headshots, modeling, corporate, dance, a bit of street portraiture. And what LUMINAR Neo is doing much better is by making available AI-driven retouching at the basic adjustment level. Watch this. So let's open up the Maddie headshot session and choose an image to work on. This one looks good. We'll first begin with the Develop Raw, which is basically the same raw adjustments that you get in Lightroom. A reduction in exposure, highlights down to around 15%, and some smart contrast. Not really sure what makes it smart, but it's a nice result all the same. Now we're going to deal with the background, which looks a bit too grungy for my taste. For this, we're going to use structure, which is similar to clarity and texture in Lightroom. Before we add any adjustments, we'll just create a mask. Now, one thing to note about Lightroom is that you are limited to what adjustments that you can apply to a mask. So let's choose Object Select. And what the software is doing is identifying separate elements within an image, like hair, skin, clothes, and background. Let's choose Background and head back into the adjustments and reduce the structure to -70, which softens the background and creates more depth of field. Next, we're going to perform some basic skin retouching, something that Lightroom simply does not offer. Let's scroll all the way down to Skin AI. First, we'll turn on Skin Defects Removal and crank the amount to 100%. And just look at the result. Skin blemishes have gone, skin tones have been evened out using a frequency separation style technique and a subtle skin softening applied. Pretty great result for one basic slider. The other slider deals with shine removal. You can see how it gives the skin more of a matte finish, something you might use on particularly oily skin or specular highlights. For this image, perhaps just 20%. Quick before and after. Looks great. Let's move on to Face AI, where we have even more targeted adjustments for the face, eyes, and mouth. Iris flare is really going to make those blue eyes pop. Obviously, this is too much, so we'll stay around 25%. Enlarge eyes is a bit bonkers if you want that sort of avatar look. Not really for me, but probably useful for some of you Instagrammers out there. Eye enhancer we can use to bring out the texture and detail in that iris. And if you wanted to bring some color and contrast to the lips, we have this option too. Let's leave things more natural, and that completes the retouch. So one final creative adjustment that I'm going to make is using this option called Mystical, which is a really powerful effect. It's almost like those dream sequences you find in Hollywood movies. Lots of variety to be found in these sliders. I think a subtle 25% amount. So here's the before and after. And from where we started, quite a dramatic difference. Now, if you're wondering if all of these adjustments with the retouch can be applied and synced to the rest of the images in the gallery, the answer is of course yes. Two ways we can do this is by either creating a preset using these three little dots down here, or we can go back to the catalog tab and select the images manually, or by pressing Ctrl-A on the keyboard to select everything. Then right-click, Adjustments, and Sync Adjustment. The process will take a little bit of time to sync to all of the images in the gallery because it's quite labor intensive with all those adjustments and skin edits. Let's just check out how well the sync applied to one of the other images. And that's a lovely result. Now, one thing you'll notice about Luminar Neo, if we head into the Edits drop-down menu, we can see that everything we applied to the original image has also been structured in this layer style system, very similar to how Photoshop works. This was our raw edits to the exposure and contrast, etc. The structure adjustment where we focused out that background, the skin retouching layer, facial features with eyes and mouth, finally the mystical layer where we turned her into a Hollywood starlet. Being able to now send this gallery to the client with a basic retouch applied before she makes her final choices, that's a valuable asset, something I'll be incorporating into my workflow. So let's take a different kind of image to get creative with. This Ferrari shot. Now, the first thing that strikes me about this image is how dark the back end of the car is. It's lacking punch and subject isolation. We can fix this using a relatively new feature called light depth. Incredibly powerful and a lot of fun. So let's boost the amount to around 70%. And you can see in this preview window how the light is being exposed three-dimensionally using the depth within the image, foreground onto the front and then to the rear of the car, then relighting the background. And what's great about this feature is how shallow we can make the depth of light to be more targeted using these sliders, finding that sweet spot on the car. Now there looks really nice. And we have a softness slider to control the fall off of light. I'll leave that where it is. Next, moving on to the dramatic effect, which I'm a big fan of. For this, we're going to apply a mask just to the car itself using the Object Select. Choose the car from the AI's choice, head back into the adjustments and crank this up. This, of course, looks too severe, so perhaps 50%, and local contrast around 40. By default, this effect desaturates the colors, so we can manually bring those back to 0. Time to add some moody atmosphere. Let's choose haze for this particular image and crank the effect up to around 60%. So this looks a bit too hazy across the entire image, so we'll use that AI and adjust the depth to around 2%, so we're just picking out the rear of the car. Kind of looks like exhaust fumes. Really nice. Quick before and after. And I think we'll just lose the effect from behind the front of the car here. Choose masking, brush, erase, and a big nice soft brush to remove that haze from where it's not required. So let's see our progress so far. Looking awesome. Now, another cool effect which has been available on Luminar Neo for a number of years now is called Magic Light. And we're going to add an anamorphic light streak to the headlight. First, let's bring the intensity to 75%, brush size to 100, Beam width down to 6%, which sharpens that starburst effect. Glow, I don't think we need. Clearness and brightness around 80% each. And finally, number of beams to 1, which gives us that anamorphic shape. Next up is the creative mood adjustment, which gives us a whole array of LUTs to choose from. Really liking Santa Barbara with a touch of saturation. Now, looking at the front wheel and the grille, I feel like these could be enhanced somewhat. So let's use the structure effect for this job. I'll create a mask using the brush tool and paint in where I think needs some attention. Then let's see about how much structure we need. Definitely 100%, and I think even a further boost to 50%. Quick before and after. Looking great. One final creative adjustment I'll make is by using that mystical effect again from before, around 40%. Shadows will land on 35, and smoothness to -35. Now, if you remember that very cool light depth effect that we applied at the beginning of this edit, well, we can revisit that in the layers. Grab the depth slider and make any final tweaks so it's perfectly lit according to all the other adjustments that we made. And here is the final edit, an absolutely killer photo using the power of LUMINAR Neo. So let's see how we change another image from a dull, overcast day with a boring sky and murky green water and completely transform it using features that simply don't exist in Lightroom. So first, I'll begin with a few basic adjustments. I'd like to desaturate some of the blue color cast in the cars. Now trying to tackle the awful greens in the water feature. Now how you would try to achieve this in Lightroom is by changing the hue of those blues towards the blue end of the spectrum, but this simply results in even greener water and it's also affecting the trees in the background. So let's reset those sliders. Instead, Luminar offers a brilliant solution called Water Enhancer. Let's bring up the amount to 100%. And if we hover over the water, you can see the AI has done a mighty fine job of identifying the body of water in this image. It even knows not to include the water sprinkler right in the center there. Now the color of the water, I would like to be more of a swimming pool color, light, vibrant blue. Original color needs to be set at 0. Brightness we can increase to about 30%, and contrast will soften and even out those more saturated tones. A quick before and after, and what a transformation with just a few sliders. Boom. Next we'll sort this boring overcast sky using a feature called Sky AI. We'll choose a suitable sky selection to match our new blue water feature. This looks okay, but we can improve it for sure. Positioning and scaling. There looks good. Global adjustments to the mask needs a tweak. Fixing the details will sort the edges of the tree line, and sky adjustments we can add a touch of warmth. But you can see that the sky replacement has affected and relit the foreground exposure in an unfavorable way. So let's grab a mask and linear gradient and drag down so we're only affecting the sky portion of the image, leaving the cars, pond and foreground untouched. And that's looking way more natural. Next, we're going to add a creative glow effect. We have a few options, including the very popular Orton techniques. I'll stick with soft focus with a strength of 25%. That's looking $1 million. But I think to get that Mediterranean vibe that I'm going for, let's use the landscape filter and introduce a touch of golden hour color grading. I feel the foreground is a touch overexposed, so using a develop adjustment and linear mask, let's just bring down the middle of the curve. Here's a quick before and after. And last few changes I'm going to make using a global adjustment layer is to the color just by desaturating the blues overall. The sky and pond are included in this because it's, of course, a new layer. I'll increase the luminance of the yellows in the grass and foliage behind the cars. And we've gone from an overcast, dull image with muddy colors to a bright, vibrant scene, which has a real Mediterranean quality. And most of these adjustments were achieved with features not available in Lightroom. You'd need something like Photoshop or Affinity Photo and a vast knowledge of how to use those programs. Why don't we have a look at a creative portrait, one of my dance shots? A few basic adjustments to start, some white balance corrections, and some obligatory curves for contrast. Now let's head down to Studio Lights Effect, and we'll switch on light customization straight away. Let's begin with an amount of 50%. And almost immediately we have a very cool lighting effect. We can choose from a dots pattern or stripes, which is my favorite, or even a selection of styled textures. Light contrast is going to affect the global exposure of the original image against these studio lights. Around 8% gives a good balance between the two. And scale, which is the most important, will determine how big the light pattern becomes. This effect really complements the structure of the red materials which is wrapped around this guy in the image. The position of the light source can be experimented with, of course, but I think where I had it to begin with was spot on. Zooming in on this dancer, I would like to enhance his cheekbone just a touch, and we can do this by choosing Dodge and Burn. Again, this kind of editing technique only really available in things like Photoshop. Having it in LUMINAR Neo, it's a great benefit. Let's bring down the strength to around 8%, and this kind of emulates flow in Photoshop. With Lighten selected, we can gradually dodge the area of his cheekbone, and it's a subtle adjustment with powerful results. A striking portrait edit with minimal effort. As well as a huge library of presets to choose from and purchase, you also have a new feature for 2026 called AI Assistant, which can be found in the edit page bottom right corner. You can get help with photo editing by asking it things like enhance the aurora borealis with vibrant colors. After a short while, the AI will present you with 3 different versions with some pretty awesome results. Or how about this? Make this photo look like a vintage Fujifilm camera. You can even get the AI to describe and guide you through how to edit an image according to your instructions. If you watched one of my previous videos on LUMINAR Neo photo restoration, I was utterly amazed by what could be achieved here. Taking beaten up old photographs and completely transforming them to look like brand new, even black and white into color. Plus the new LUMINAR Mobile, which allows you to edit on the go in the app and continue editing back at your desk with their seamless cross-device ecosystem. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. So many creative ways to add flair to your images with just one piece of software. It's the complete ecosystem. If you did enjoy the video, please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel with that little red button below. That would really help me out as a content creator. I'll see you on the flip side.